Hello everybody, my name is Pastor Loren Christensen. I'm with the Danish Countryside Chapel. You ever notice sometimes when you're trying to do something that you know is right, it's so hard to take that first step because you're so afraid, what's going to happen? What are people going to think if we take that first step toward change? Martin Luther was a big believer in public education. One of the things that just appalled Martin Luther about the condition of the churches at the time, on or about 1517, when he, of course, nailed the thesis up on the church in Wittenberg. He couldn't believe the amount of illiteracy in the country, and he couldn't believe that the institutions that were supposed to be supporting these places didn't seem to care. And so as the countryside fell further behind and further into disarray, Martin Luther came to a point where he just had to say something. And so he changed the world. I'm not going to say that I'm trying to change the world, but maybe we could change a couple things that might help our lives in the smaller communities a little bit. The League of Rural Lutheran Churches is a preponderance of Lutherans. It's an overwhelming amount of Lutherans. Your country churches scattered all over the countryside in the United States are largely Lutheran. And one of the reasons for that is that Luther wanted to spread the religion into the countryside and get Bibles in everybody's hands and to teach Scripture and to make it possible for everybody to, I don't know that this was one of his missions, but to make everybody able to get into the clergy if they wanted to. But things have changed, over these last 5 centuries. And they've gotten better sometimes and worse other times. And it's going to be like that because the Lutheran Church and other churches around it, like any institution, they're going to have their ups and downs. But all the churches scattered throughout the countryside, particularly in the Midwest, these Lutheran churches, they started to close them. And it's gotten to the point where, the League of Rural Lutheran Churches, again, is a preponderance of Lutherans, but our mission reaches out to other denominations as well. Our goal is to bring the word of Christ back into the rural areas of the country. For years, small parishes have been closed, one after another. After being told things like, we just can't support all these parishes, or we can't find enough pastors to support all of these parishes. So, these are just inevitable things. The truth is, under our current system, there are many people who would help keep these small churches open if they were given any kind of an alternative. It is true that we will have to close more churches if the manner in which we choose pastors and ordain pastors remains the same as it has in the last few generations. Many of us out there in the pews in our lives make decisions every day affecting hundreds of people around us. Yet when it comes to religion, it seems like all common sense goes out the window. And we're willing to look the other way. And we're willing to forget about it when we're looked past, taken for granted, held as expendable in the face of current times. But are all these things true? Or is somebody selling something and somebody else is buying it here? We don't have to lower our standards for people. If we lower our standards for ordination and installation on the next generation of Lutheran pastors to fill pulpits in all of these small churches, we can find, evaluate, and accept people into the ministry per the congregations that they serve. Send them to the programs that are available, teaching the basics of ministry and equipping them with what they need to begin services in whatever parishes they may serve, regardless of the size. And there are places out there like Beyond the River Academy. I went to this place before I started at the Institute of Lutheran Theology. They are out there. We need to stop relying, however, on credentials and start honestly evaluating individuals for their fitness to enter the ministry. And no, I don't mean looking at their rap sheet. I mean, figuring out, are they really called? Are they really, is this really what they should do? Taking the time to interview them. Who will pay for these programs? Well, the church is in need of pastors, can find and refer individuals that are interested in the ministry, who feel that they have a calling to serve, and they can pay for these seminarians' instruction at institutions such as Beyond the River Academy, many of which are not that expensive, in order to keep these churches open and the people home worshiping where they belong. After concluding these studies, we can ordain them and set them toward their next destination, which is to obtain a Master's of Divinity from a list of accepted institutions. During this time, another pastor can shadow them in order to keep everything on track. I am currently an LCMC pastor, and we do not have bishops. However, bishops could help a lot in keeping these new pastors on the right track. And no, I'm not talking about bringing back ordinary authority. I'm talking about leadership, which can be provided at any level in the structure. And it's something that we have not had in many years. What do I mean by a statement like back home where they belong? I will explain. If you or I travel to look at a spectacle or an event, driving long distances during our time off, it doesn't seem like that big of a problem. But in order to establish a lasting relationship in a church, it is really hard to worship in one place and live with people and somewhere else. And it is really hard to establish a lasting relationship in a church when you worship one place and with one people and live someplace else with other people. I got it out. Common sense here. If you travel 50 or more miles to go to church, you don't really live among these people at all, and they really don't know you that well. In addition to this example lie other examples such as this one. Now, I'm a recovering alcoholic, so here's my example. If I'm a drunk in my house, not coming out for days on a bender, or if I'm bipolar, having a bad run of days, as so many people are, how is this well-intentioned roster of associate pastors from 50 or 75 miles away supposed to know or find out or talk to me? Because the truth is, they don't even know me. Not really. Then the next thing people want to know, how are we going to pay these pastors? And it's a question that's answered much more easily than some would like. We are going to pay them substantially less. We are going to enroll them into programs already in existence to train them for their new parishes, where they will have a crucial role in their survivability, while they stay home and preach the gospel right in their hometowns. For 2 generations at least, pastors' salaries have continued to go up, while the work and the services they provide in many cases has gone nothing but down, leaving parishes in the desperate situation of having nowhere to turn, while these overpaid and ineffective pastors refuse to leave and drive their parishes into the ground. The average salary suggested by a current Lutheran denomination for their pastors is approximately $85,000 plus benefits and a parsonage, which equals somewhere around $110,000. I know for a fact that there are legions of good people out there who are willing to sacrifice real time and money in order to keep their hometown churches open by doing the work for a lot less. Instead of closing these churches, we should be figuring out what we can honestly pay for and asking who is interested in going to school for us. No one from any organization is going to come in and fix your problems for you, especially if their interests are not your interests. This doesn't mean necessarily that anyone is bad or villainous, but it does mean, however, that your ministries do not and should not coincide with one another, because they're completely different in their natures. You don't even know one another, not really. Sure, you could get to know one another, but is that really the way to go? Is that the way you should go? Or is it the way they should go? And they'd love you to come with. Look at the plumber down the street, or the school teacher that has some time, or the retired coach that can get through to anybody. Let's educate and ordain these people to lead our churches and our communities forward into a real future, which involves all of us as full participants, not watching a screen or relegated to some other thing. Many of these people would welcome the opportunity to serve in this new way for their hometown. Some say rural areas due to robots, etc., will be halved again in population over the next 50 years. And if that is the case, are they telling us that those who remain do not need to be baptized, married, and buried by people they actually know? Because if we are not important enough, then we are in much bigger problems than we even understand. There are people who would perform these services for so much less. I'm one of them. It doesn't mean that I'm worth less. It means that I'm willing to serve more. Or desperate enough, possibly. How important is your hometown to you? How important is home? Why are we building new churches when there are perfectly good ones in these small towns, standing empty or barely being used? We got to ask ourselves these tough questions. Are these 100 to 150-year-old institutions worth a little real effort? Or should we just throw our hands up and quit? I think personally quitting is the worst thing that we can do for everybody involved. It doesn't help the bigger churches. They've got enough on their plate. If you enjoy looking at falling down buildings and run down main streets, this is how it's done. We have to fix the things in our hometowns. Big churches and all the amenities and all these gigantic gymnasiums and auditoriums, the flash bang and all the giddy up that I wish that I had. You know, I'm recording this on a phone. They're fine. But we're not selling memberships to an exclusive club here. And these aren't timeshares. People should worship where they live and be of service in their home communities. In closing, no one is suggesting any skullduggery on anyone's part here. But the days of just accepting failure after failure in these small communities must stop, or we will be reduced to nothing in a system that frankly does not care about us all that much. We must take control now. There is no time to wait. It's not that these places don't care about us. They do. That's why they're offering these services. If we stood up and took charge of our own lives and took care of one another and took care of ourselves in so doing it, I think that we would be doing them and ourselves a favor. And we would be keeping hundreds of churches open that are in no need of closing. I wish all of you God's blessings. There's a lot here to look at. I'm Pastor Loren. Have a good day.